Okay, so I'm just now going to talk you through a little bit about what you might call block breakup, and I think it is a good idea to handle the soil, but to handle it in a quite controlled manner basically. So if we are going to break up the block, we don't just break it down into sort of tiny crumbs basically. So we're just going to basically try to sort of perhaps sort of handle the soil in a sort of gentle manner basically. For example, you know, breaking off a section like this to kind of reveal some of the internal structure. Again, we can see these quite pronounced sort of angular aspects in here, and on the block that I've broken away, you can see this again. That's quite blocky. See the way that's coming away there? You know, that is a good example of a block. Yeah, so it's blocky, it's solid, it's dense, and I would call that consolidated as opposed to compacted. Yeah, there may be some compaction that has occurred to this soil, but that may not have been from anything mechanical, vehicles or animals, for example. So it's certainly consolidated, it's dense, yeah, and again, these kind of angular faces. And then the other thing we'll show at the end here basically is if we flip over the sample, you can see the reason why it's sitting so well in the tray is we've got a nice flat face from the original spade. So the spade is useful for us to get that nice flat face, but obviously we want to remove that when we're actually doing the interpretation. So this is why we tear it up, we tear it apart. But again, if we wanted to handle the soil again, we want to like touch it as little as possible, but then kind of like pull it apart. There we go. And then this is where we can see all of that aggregate structure, this kind of loose crumb-like structure basically, as opposed to this heavy solid. Or even if we lift this up and compare that here, again this blocky kind of angular structure down here on my right hand, and a much more finer structure and potentially even slightly rounded up here in the root zone basically. So this is why roots really are so important basically, because they create this structure with the organisms that they associate with. They basically turn this subsoil, the consolidated subsoil, into loose, friable topsoil, and that's what we're trying to achieve.